Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we are going to explore the things I like and don't like about the Canon R system. I'm pleased to announce that I'm launching 3 Capture One style packs: Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These will eventually also be available for Lightroom, so if you go to kevindealphotography.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and join my mailing list, I promise I won't send you spam, but I will let you know the second these release. And now, on to today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So I have been using Canon pretty much since college, so unfortunately that's 20 years. So I've been using Canon for 2 decades, and I've been using Canon mirrorless ever since the EOS R was introduced back in 2018. So I have a lot of extensive experience using Canon, and I definitely have opinions about Canon. And so in today's episode, we're going to talk about the things that I like about the Canon R system and the things that I think that Canon could improve upon with the R system. So if you are a Canon fanboy, you're going to be super excited because I'm going to talk about a bunch of things that validate all of your opinions and makes you feel good about yourself. And if you hate watch this, and for whatever reason you're still watching because you hate watch things, you're going to hear all the things that I don't like about Canon. So you're going to get excited as well. There's a little something for everyone. But the true audience I'm trying to reach in this episode is somebody who's just getting into photography. They're not sure which camera system to go with, or maybe they're on Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, whatever, and maybe they're looking to switch over to another system and they're considering Canon. That's who I'm really targeting in this video. So if you're one of those people, stick around. One thing I do want to establish in this video is that I myself am not a fanboy. I do want to tell you what I don't like about Canon, despite the fact that I've shot on it for 2 decades. I also shoot on the Fuji X system and the Fuji GFX system, so I'm not biased toward a particular camera brand, and frankly, my opinion is that I could shoot on any camera brand just because I've been shooting long enough. If you made me shoot on Sony, I can make it happen. If you made me shoot on Nikon, I can make it happen. I think all camera systems, in terms of the features they offer, are fantastic. The things that differentiate them is maybe the ergonomic layout, the way the menus are laid out, whether or not you gravitate toward the color science, whether or not the autofocusing system clicks with you. And those are the things to me that really matter with a camera system. I think all camera systems are perfectly capable of achieving professional results. So let's start talking about the things that we like. The first thing that I like about the Canon R system is reliability. From the original EOS R to my R5 to the R7, the R8, the R50, I've used all of these cameras. I've even used R6s, other people's R6s, and I've never had an issue with the cameras. And when I'm talking about reliability, that's a very broad term. Autofocus is reliable. I can go shoot a wedding, shoot 1,000, 2,000 pictures, and I would be shocked if the autofocus missed more than 2 or 3 the entire ceremony. That's pretty awesome. Another great thing about Canon is that it doesn't matter if you buy a $6,000 camera or a $600 camera, they trickle down the algorithms all the way to their cheapest cameras. So you could buy the cheapest Canon APS-C camera and you're going to get state-of-the-art, industry-leading autofocus. Speaking of reliability, I've never had a Canon camera fail me in the elements. The weather sealing built into their cameras is seconds to none. I do think that Nikon is probably equal to them. They have really good, reliable cameras. But I've taken my 60, my R5, my R8, and my R7 all out into the elements, oftentimes in total downpours, and I've never had one of these cameras die on me. They just work. And that reliability, if you're a working professional, is definitely something you may want to consider. Another comment on reliability is their firmware. Now, I have seen anecdotal examples of people saying, hey, my Canon camera is glitchy. And oftentimes when I do further digging, I'm finding that they're using like a third-party lens on an adapter, like a Sigma, and they're having that error 22 or something like that come up. When I think about my 6D, my 7D, and my experience moving over into the whole Canon R ecosystem with the R, the R7, the R8, the R5, the R50, using other people's R6s, using other people's R6 Mark IIs, I've actually never experienced any sort of glitching or freezing on any of my Canon cameras. And so in my personal experience, all the firmware inside these cameras has been rock solid, and I never really have to worry about my camera ever having glitchy issues or freezing up. And if you're into that sort of reliability, then I would definitely look into the Canon system, because I have these issues a lot on my Fuji system. So it's not peas and carrots across the board with all camera manufacturers, but I have experienced nothing but positive experiences with Canon. Another thing about the Canon R system that I love is how sharp their lenses are. Gosh, these L lenses are insane, but even their non-L lenses, like their RF50 1.8 or their RF35 millimeter 1.8, very sharp lenses themselves. So you don't necessarily have to spend $3,000 to get sharp lenses. Their RF 85 millimeter f2 is an incredibly sharp lens. So if you don't have an insane budget and you don't necessarily need weather sealed lenses, you could absolutely get into their entry level full frame lenses and still take incredibly sharp pictures. And more importantly, you could still take professional pictures. But I do want to talk about their L lenses, because the older L lenses, like the older 85 1.2, the older 50 1.2, the newer versions of these, when you shoot them wide open at 1.2, they are insanely sharp, clinically sharp in the center of the frame. And that wasn't the case with the older EF versions. The older EF versions were soft. They had chromatic aberration. You had to stop them down to like f4, f5.6 before you could go, yeah, that's a sharp image. They were incredibly soft. That's not the case with the new L lenses. These L lenses are insanely sharp, to the point where I actually sometimes have to soften them in post-production because they're too sharp. Now, that could be a good thing, because a lot of you out there, that's the one thing you're looking at with lenses is how sharp is it. But me personally, I actually find these lenses are so sharp that I have to scale them back, but I would rather have that issue than not have them ever be sharp enough. Another thing that I absolutely love about the Canon R system is that they're just easy to use. I find that the menus are the best in the business. If you see something, you touch it, it takes you there. When you have a Canon menu, everything is in front of you. When you get to a bottom of a page, you move to the next tab. I think that makes way more sense than menus that keep going, that are endless. You go down 6 or 7 pages, maybe to get to where you can customize your custom camera settings. I don't like that sort of setup. To me, Canon menus are the best in the business. You touch something with your finger, it takes you there. It's so user-friendly. It's color-coded. Another reason why I think Canon is super easy is because it's such a widely adopted system that if you don't know how to do something, there's such a huge user community on YouTube and other places that if you just type in how to do, insert your problem into a Google search or a YouTube search, there will definitely be a dozen videos that can help you out on the system if you don't understand something right off the bat. Another thing I absolutely love about the Canon R system is the control ring. I shoot on Fuji as my other system, and they have an aperture ring, but the aperture ring only does one thing, and that's the aperture. Maybe I want to control white balance. Maybe I want to control my autofocus area. Maybe I want to control my ISO. Or maybe I just want to make this an aperture ring. You can do all that with the control ring. And the nice thing that Canon does is you don't have to spend $3,000 on a lens to get the control ring. They put the control ring in all of their lenses. Even with this $300 16 millimeter lens, you have the control ring. Yes, the same control ring you find in this $3,000 85 millimeter lens. So Canon being nice enough to sprinkle that technology across all of their lenses, to me, makes it a very desirable system if you're considering getting into it. Another cool thing about Canon is that they have unique lenses. A 28 to 70 f2. You're used to seeing a 24 to 70 f2.8, but a 28 to 70 f2 is a game changer type of lens. I do recommend you go check out my review of it. But being able to shoot at f2 is a game changer from 28 to 70, because you could essentially have this be your only lens that you use at a wedding during the ceremony. Then maybe you have a second camera with a 135, or maybe you have a 70 to 200 if you don't have a second shooter present. I love using this lens for editorial work. And then they also have that new 24 to 105 f2.8. Before that, you'd always see a 24 to 105 f4. But having Having that extra stop of light is a result of this new flange mount distance and the fact that Canon is pushing their optics to another level. And if you are into innovative lenses, in my opinion, Canon is leading the way in the industry. So now that I've appeased all the fanboys and made them super happy, it's time to make the haters super happy, because we're going to talk about the things about the Canon R system that I don't like. While I love the sharpness and I love the boundaries that these L lenses push, it is at the expense that these lenses are enormous and they are heavy. I shot some video with this 28-70 a couple years ago and I actually got tennis elbow. For like 6 months, I had incredible pain in my elbow and it took a while to go away. These lenses are 3 to 5 pounds oftentimes. And so if you are having issues holding things above your shoulders for long periods of time, I don't recommend you get these lenses. These lenses are just insanely heavy. And they're also awkward. So like the 85 1.2, it's a very nice lens. It's probably my favorite lens. It's the most clinically sharp lens that Canon makes besides the 135 1.8. When I handle this lens out in the field, it's kind of awkward. It's pretty large. It has an 82 millimeter filter thread size, but the barrel is much larger than 82 millimeters. And so that's something to consider if you're out there in the field. Yes, these lenses are durable. I've actually dropped this lens while I was attached to the R5 and it survived. It didn't mess up the focal plane or any of that, but that is definitely something to consider. Maybe you have much smaller hands than me. Maybe you're a woman and you have hands that are maybe 2/3 the size of my hands. I have issues handling this out in the field, so I'm assuming you're going to have the same problem. One thing that could be challenging for a lot of you who are considering moving into the RF system is the expense. If you get the non-L lenses, it's pretty comparable to what you see out there. You have lenses that range from $200 to about $500, and that's fine. But if you're looking to be a working professional, you're up and coming, and you want to buy those L lenses, you need stuff that is weather sealed. That is going to come at a large expense to many of you. Now, expense and something that is considered expensive is relative. In my opinion, if you are going to be a working professional, these lenses should pay for themselves because you should be charging enough to pay them off. But for a lot of you, spending $3,200 on a lens is incredibly steep, and I don't blame you. I've been in that situation. I've been young, I've been up and coming, and I've had my dreams dashed before by things that I just simply can't afford. So if you're watching this and you are on a tight budget, the R system may be a dream for you at this moment in time, but I will tell you that these lenses are so awesome that they have absolutely helped me make money. So if you're thinking of it as an investment, I think that this is a worthy investment if you're willing to take that leap. But if it's just simply too steep for you, that's absolutely going to be perceived as a negative of the Canon system. And I've seen people in forums just say, look, man, I'd love to have an 85 1.2. It's just not going to happen with my expenses right now. And I totally empathize with those people. And that is absolutely a reality, which leads me to my next thing that I unfortunately don't like about the Canon R system. And for a lot of you, this is the biggest sore spot, and that is lack of third-party support when it comes to lenses. Now, there was just an announcement last week that third-party lenses are coming from Sigma and Tamron, but that is with the caveat that it is only for their APS-C cameras. And I suspect that's because Canon simply doesn't have time to address these very cheap lenses. So they're like, well, we'll just let Sigma and Tamron do that for us. We're going to focus on our more expensive glass, the L glass. And unfortunately for a lot of you who are having dreams of becoming professional photographers using the EOS R system, if you're going to do it with the native mount, you still have to use those proprietary Canon lenses because they have not yet opened that up for Sigma and Tamron. And to me, that is something that they are eventually going to have to do if they want to bring those people into the R system. Now, you could go out and get an adapter, and you could go out and get any EF lens made since 1987 with that autofocus. But in my experience, when I pixel peep, none of those lenses look as good as the RF lenses. I'm not saying that the lenses look bad. Most of the lenses look good, and most of those EF lenses do have improved autofocus just because the R system has better autofocus than the older DSLR mirrored cameras. But those older lenses in general do not resolve better than the RF glass. And while I've heard people say that, oh man, these lenses look just as good as the RF, well, I disagree. I've never heard somebody make the claim that any EF lens looks better than its RF counterpart. counterpart, and there's a really good reason for that because none of those older EF lenses were designed to work on 45 megapixel cameras. They were designed mainly to work on film cameras, and then the newer ones worked with lower megapixel cameras in general. So the newer glass is going to have better resolution, it's going to be sharper, and it makes sense because it was designed to work with the new R system. So that is my summary of the Canon EOS R system. Those pros, those cons, definitely something you need to weigh and consider if you're going to make a leap to the Canon system. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for checking out today's episode. Have you made the leap over to the Canon R system? Are you considering making the leap over to the Canon R system? And did this video help or hurt you or confuse you more? Tell me about that in the comments below. And if you like this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below, and all the Canon lenses I've pretty much reviewed, so definitely check those links out in the description below. You can go check out my YouTube channel. I've reviewed plenty of the Canon cameras, so if you need further consideration, you need to weigh things a bit further, definitely go check out those videos. And if you're a fan of this channel, you like my uncensored opinions, you want to hear my uncensored opinions, I highly recommend you go check out my other YouTube channel, the F11 Photography Podcast. And of course, there's an audio-only format, which can be found on both Apple and Spotify. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.